moving on to your international career. So again, another one that has spanned from under 15, entering the pathway at first time, obviously now through to senior, where you've got 5 senior caps. So at the start of your senior journey, really, but obviously you've been exposed to certain experiences along the way. When you first started, or you first got called up for the England under 15s, how did you feel? What was your thoughts going into your first camp?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Obviously, it's cliche. Everyone said it was the best moment, but it's one of them that's hard to describe unless it actually happens. I remember we were sat down at the dining table, and at that point, it was like the email come through, and it was like under 15 training camp, whatever. But I just remember it was weird because you don't necessarily think, like, in my mind at that time, I never thought that it was like, not that it didn't exist, but that England was actually a thing that was there. So for that to come through, you kind of, at that point, it was more like the Arsenal Chelsea girls, not the Sheffield United centre of excellence. So it wasn't something I'd really thought of, as no one else from the centre of excellence had really been exposed to that at that time. So for me, it was unbelievable. And like I said earlier on about my dad being a massive football fan, you can imagine what he was like. He was chuffed a bit. So I think as a family, being a massive football family, it was a huge achievement, really.
Yeah, for sure. And then you went on from that point to under 17s European Championships in the World Cup in Jordan.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bit of an insight into your experiences there?
Yeah, that was the best years, to be honest. I absolutely loved them years. The squad we had and everything, it was brilliant. Obviously, going into the Euros, you have to qualify. So we ended up in places like Estonia, like some of the most random countries, but it was just like the experiences you get from that were unbelievable. Obviously, that's the first couple of trips that you do away from home, away from your parents. So getting used to that was different. But yeah, like I say, we did Estonia, and then the finals were in Belarus. That was an experience. We got actually quite a tough group during that, but like the group of girls we had, some of the players we had we were a great group, to be honest. It was a good group of players, and the staff were great. And I remember we had Norway in the first game, and it was 3-3. It was the most chaotic game ever. No one really had played in a game that big before. So I think it was just so end to end, just transitional. There wasn't really much style for it, but it was class. And then we got to the semi-finals, so we got out the group, got to the semi-final, and we got Germany. And it's always kind of been this big thing about Germany in the youth age group for some reason.
Yeah.
It's always been like, Germany are the best. Germany are like, we played them in a friendly tournament before that, and they were unbelievable. So going into that, I think everyone was just probably a bit nervous, to be honest. I remember I was so nervous. We ended up losing 4-2. It was probably one of the worst games I ever played in my life. Just one of them moments. It was the first game we'd ever been on TV. We're singing the national anthem. The camera's coming across. Everyone's just like, "What is happening here?" Like, It was so like just unknown for everyone, to be honest. And then we obviously got put into the 3rd and 4th place playoff match, and that was against Norway again. So obviously 3-3 chaotic match was all a bit right, come on. And in the Germany game, a few people had terrible performances, so everyone was just a bit like, right, we've got to do it here. And we had to win that match to qualify for the World Cup in September in Jordan. Because obviously it was the top 3 went. And we managed to win that 1-0. It was such a nervy game, but we managed to win. And I think from that experience, it was more the off pitch and the social. Like, the girls were brilliant. The families of the girls managed to become so close. There was a lot of kind of things that contributed to that being a really successful year, to be honest. And then we went to the World Cup out in Jordan in September. I think we all felt a bit like celebrities. It was something like, it was amazing. Obviously, your first real exposure, we had all the media training, like all the anti-doping stuff that no one had ever really experienced. And I remember the first session out there was training on AstroTurf out in Jordan. It was like 35 degrees on the top of this hill somewhere. The most random thing ever. We were getting police escorts everywhere. It was I think just them experience really contributed to it. And then we played North Korea in our first game, and it was same again, 3-3, chaotic as anything. And they then went on to actually win the tournament. We weren't really successful within that. We got knocked out in the quarters against Japan, but it was one of them where I've never actually had that feeling before, but where you just hold your hands up and go, they were just better than us. And I don't think I've had that feeling since, but I just remember it was 3-0 and I was looking at the scoreboard thinking, just somebody put us out of our misery, because they were passing it left, right, and centre. All the girls didn't know where to go. They were just running everywhere. Like, they were class. But I think looking back on the youth age groups, you kind of don't look at necessarily the results. You more look at how you developed. And I think just the bond, you learn so many different things from that. And training, like being out there for 6 weeks and training full time was class. Like, there were so many different contributions to it that I think I'll remember forever, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the senior stuff in a minute, but it sounds like a lot of those experiences that you went through during your pathway years so far would be really integral in terms of helping prepare you for what life would look like potentially at senior level.
Yeah, massively.
So we'll get onto that in a bit, and then you went to the under-19s Euros. And then the under-20s World Cup, where you got the bronze medal. You didn't feature in the games in those tournaments. How did you deal with being involved as an important member of a squad and affecting the outcomes of what the games would look like without stepping on the pitch? How did you deal with it? How did you cope with it in the moment?
Yeah, that was tough. I think obviously the 17 years compared to the 18s and 20s were so contrasting. It was a different group of players who I went with. It was the year above that we'd not really worked with before. But I think going to that tournament, it was kind of a realization, really. I think I probably learned so much more about myself in that period of time than I did when you're actually playing. At first, it was a hard pill to swallow, and it was really difficult. I'd kind of gone off. To be honest, I'd gone into the 20s tournament with expectations I probably shouldn't have gone in with. Obviously, I went, like I say, we'll go on to that in a minute. But with the seniors, I went as an extra player for the She Believes, and I was playing at City at the time. So, like, club wise, I was loving it. I was progressing really well, and then you kind of get into that, and it was kind of like I was dropped down to earth. But I think now looking back on it, that has helped me so much. Just kind of having that different role, being away for 6 weeks, not playing, being a training goalkeeper was tough. And I think you can go one way or another. You can kind of go into that. You can be miserable every day. And I hold my hands up, for the first few days, I was probably the worst person to work with. But I think from then you realise that you can't be like that. You can't. This different goal and a different outcome. And there was a bigger picture to that at that time, and we needed to go and win a bronze medal. So I think contributing any ways you can, really. Sandy was the goalkeeper at that time, and we have a good relationship, so it wasn't anything personal. It wasn't we like on the pitch we kind of cracked on as normal, supported her as much as I could, trained. You've kind of got to train well, so it helps her train well. And obviously in the meetings, contribute in any way you can, because I think in that you kind of realise that you still have a voice regardless of whether you're playing or not. You can help in a lot of different ways, and for that period of time, whether you're happy or you're unhappy, you've got to just get through it for that period of time, and kind of, if you're not happy, then wait until that 6 week period's over and reflect on it then, because it was 6 weeks is a long period of time to moan and be unhappy and try and affect the team, whereas actually you can affect it in a positive way, and we came away with a bronze medal and it was class. But I think from there, them experiences was the first time for me where I didn't play. So the first game coming, I wasn't playing, and Martin was our sports scientist at the time. So I was like, right, if I'm not playing, what can I do off the pitch? I can push in a lot of different areas. Because I wasn't the most physical, the most strong, and I knew that was areas I needed to improve on and what I'd been improving for club. So for me, it was kind of like, well, I can still do this now. I'm not playing, pick it wisely, pick my areas and days where I can improve. And coming off the back of that tournament, I came off the back of that tournament probably fittest, strongest I'd been for a while, because I had a good 6-week block to focus on different areas really. And we took three keepers to that World Cup, and there were sessions where we were doing 11v11, and instead of being on the side rotating in, I was playing centre back. I was playing just wherever I could fit in really. More just I could work my feet, I could do different things. So I think from that point of view, there's always things you can find. And then being on the bench, just helping out, it's tough, like, but you've got to you've got to deal with it.
I suppose there's some really key things to come out of there around being able to deal with perhaps a little bit of adversity, and actually find the positives from it. Like, and you talked about improving yourself physically, and those why you had that time to do it. But I suppose ultimately you was always there waiting that you might have had to walk on that pitch or go on the pitch. So it's the same as you did in your club environment. When you had to step on the pitch, you had to be ready. So I think there's probably some key moments in there, some key crossover messages. I was just thinking back to what it's like, and no different at senior. You're away from home a lot. You're away from family. You're traveling. You can be anywhere in the world. How much do you feel like linking back to your club experiences, moving from Sheffield to United to City, to obviously moving away from home into digs? How much do you feel like that experience helps you then deal on the road with international football?
Yeah, definitely, massively. I think, like, I kind of learned quick that on them it's hard really, because you've got the people who are social 24/7, want to be doing things 24/7, and then you've also got people who kind of want to have their own space and their own company. So I think as well, like roommates and things like that, you kind of have to learn a lot about people rather than focusing on yourself. People want different things. I've always been fortunate really that my parents have travelled wherever. They've been all over the world with me, Kazakhstan, Estonia. They were there for everything. So from that point of view, I've been really lucky. And when you get family time and things like that, I've always had that. So I guess you never really go more than 10 days in a tournament where they don't go. You can have an hour with your family. So from that point of view, I've been pretty lucky. But I guess for other people who might not have that, it can be quite tough at times, because essentially you're in a football bubble for hours and hours and hours, and you don't really get out of that when you're on international. It's a bit different from club, because you can go into the club, but you also go out of it. So for me, I think I've really focused on, when I'm at football, it's about football, but also having that switch off. Whereas I think earlier on when you're in digs, you don't really have that switch on, because you're in digs to play football essentially. So
it's all part of you.
Constantly just thinking about football. Whereas now I've got my own space, I can do whatever, go and see my family. I can drive, whereas at digs I couldn't drive, so I can't go anywhere. So there's lots of different things that contribute to it, but you have to kind of find a way to distract yourself. And I remember going back to the 17s, we was playing the Euro finals, and I had to take my biology GCSE exam in the Belarusian embassy. So there's so much, like at youth age group, you think you're going out there to play a tournament, but like, there was like 3 of us doing our GCSEs out there, because we were young ones. So I think at youth you have lots of different things on your mind. Like we had an education officer, we had to spend 3 hours a day doing education. But looking back on them type of things, they're probably the best memories that you can kind of take from there. So like, who would have done the biology exam in Belarus? Like, it just doesn't happen. So I think, like, looking back, there's so many different things. Like, it can be negative, it can be positive, but they all kind of contribute towards how you are.
And the experience that you have. That's great. And then obviously you get your first call up into a senior squad. So what did that moment look like? What did it feel like? Can you recollect it?
Yeah, it was. I was still at digs actually when Phil rang, and I remember sat at the top of the stairs, and I was just like, this number came through, and he was like, "Hi Ellie, it's Phil Neville," and you kind of just like, I didn't know what to say. I was so like, I didn't know what to say, so I was just a bit like shocked. But he was like, "We'd like to take you to." It was the She Believes where I first kind of initially went with the squad, and I was just buzzing. I think I had my suitcase packed about 3 weeks before we actually went. But, Yeah, that was a new thing as well because you go and yeah, I knew 6 or 7 of the players
Yeah,
from City, but again, I never met anyone else. So you're always going into these new situations. Even still now, the squad changes a lot. That you've got to be adaptable within as a person to kind of fit yourself within that group. But I loved every minute of it. So
yeah,
yeah,
and I suppose that what other experiences from that first exposure to senior football can you remember, and how have they helped you going forward now? Obviously, it was at She Believes in 2018. I know again you had Georgia Stanway with you in a similar sort of
Mhm.
role while he was on that camp, so I assume that helped.
Yeah.
But what experiences from that tournament did you feel set you up in terms of going forwards?
Yeah, definitely. It's an all different ball game really from youth. Obviously, you go through that system and it tries to prepare you as much as you can, but essentially going into that environment, you're an adult and you're classed as an adult. You're not classed as any different. You're not really classed as. I didn't feel like I was classed as a young player. Everyone's kind of given the same platform, which I really liked. Going in the meetings, obviously all the in-depth stuff about the opponents and stuff was all a lot different to what I'd faced, and just the level of training was, yeah, I was training at City every day, but again, you're going in with the top 20 players in the country all in
Mm,
one session. Again, the standard goes up, and you kind of realise that, and I think balls must have been flying past me left, right, and centre, and just another realisation that like this is where you've got to be, and this is kind of the standard. Obviously, training. I think it was KB, CT, and Shiv at that
yeah,
point.
yeah, it was, yeah.
Obviously, the free keepers who for years have been the top free keepers. So obviously, I'd looked up to them and watched them in the WSL. And obviously, knowing KB's ability, that was kind of a big step. And still, like the sessions, the speed of the sessions, the demand, it still just went up another level.
Yeah,
So kind of getting used to that, and obviously then in the She Believes Cup, it's a top level tournament. So having to then prepare for games, training is different. You're not necessarily always on the pitch. There's so many different things you've got to kind of prepare for. So getting used to that and just getting a taste for what it looks like match day -1, what it looks like match day +2, the travel. There's so many things in a tournament like that that's
yeah.
different, like 3 different places across America, and then getting ready to train, recovering. It was so many things that I think really helped and just helped me understand and what it was like.
And you mentioned it a couple of times, and it's probably a really key point again for people watching around, I suppose, the life of a professional football player isn't just on the pitch; it's off the pitch. You live your life, and all those moments you spoke about there—the travel, the rest, the recuperation, the turnaround time between game 1 to game 2 to game 3, it gets tighter and tighter, and your ability to recover and your application to how you recover becomes so important. Um,
Mhm.
and I think in many ways, if you don't get that right, then the on the pitch, the on the pitch sort of performances suffer. So I think there's probably some really key messages in terms of the living the life of a professional and what it actually takes,
Yeah.
which obviously you've gone through and experienced. So you get back from that, and you go on to make your senior debut. So we're
Yeah.
in Austria against
Mhm.
Austria. You're standing at the side of the pitch. Mary's coming off the pitch, and you're about to go on. How did you feel? Obviously, a proud moment.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like I say, a feeling you can't really describe. It's a mixed emotion, really. You're nervous, but obviously it's so exciting. And it's the same again. You get your first touch, and it's like you've played for ages. Obviously playing with a different back four. There's so many different things, but at that point, you don't really think. You just literally at that point, I can say that I just enjoyed that moment.
Yeah,
I think there was about 20 minutes left.
yeah,
And I obviously in the back of your mind, you're just thinking, just whatever you do, do not concede or do anything stupid. But I think I just enjoyed that moment massively. And when you get your first touch and your first pass, then you get into the swing of things. And I think for me, the main thing was my dad had actually come out to Austria for that game, so
yeah, yeah. I
he didn't
remember. Yeah,
miss it, which was
that's
was class
class.
because obviously he travels everywhere. So I was glad he was there for that moment.
Yeah. And after, how did I suppose, not your life change, but obviously media attention, exposure in social media. How did you cope with it? What got thrown your way?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you get all the media training and what have you, but I think it is weird. It's something I'd not experienced before. Like obviously you have Twitter, Instagram, but I never really thought about it like that. And then you're going on it and you're thinking, I've got notifications here, not like you don't really think that would ever happen. So I think from that point of view, it was weird. So getting used to that, but I think now you learn that a lot of things are positive towards you, but then there will like for me now. I think, yeah, it's good, it's going well, but then what happens if it don't go well? So I think you've got to get that balance of knowing, and I think learning, I think me and KB have spoke about that a lot, like as a goalkeeper, you're scrutinised so quickly if you make a mistake. So we spoke about that a lot, and I think what I have learned from that is going back to the tournaments and things like that. KB always said, just switch off your phone, whether it's good, whether it's bad. And I think
Yeah,
that's something going forward I'd look to use, because it can, like, it's going well and you're buzzing, you're like, oh, he's saying good things, but then as soon as it goes bad, it can impact you. So I
can
think
impact
just
you. Yeah.
being sensible with it.
Yeah, no, that's really really good advice. And obviously, your profile has grown as with your exposure to obviously your successes at Man City and your successes at England, and then obviously we go to the World Cup in the summer. You come along as the fourth goalkeeper in the squad. How did it feel to be in and around the experience? Obviously, there would have been disappointment not to be in the squad, but a clear role in terms of how you was going to help the squad achieve what they were setting out to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. That was a whole different ball game to anything I'd experienced. Obviously, been to youth tournaments, and I would say, like, looking back, using the 20s experience, that was disappointing. But actually, fast forward to that summer, the next summer, it helped me massively in playing that role of supporting, obviously, Mary, Carly, and KB. It helped me massively, and I think one thing I took from that, like going into it, it was an unbelievable experience. The media coverage, like you say, was massive. Back home, the support was massive, and that's something I'd never really experienced. Like I say, the Canada World Cup kind of set the precedence for that, but
Yeah,
going into it and being a part of it and being inside it, like I was just watching it on the sofa. So actually being there and being around it and knowing all the media tasks you have to do off the pitch, like it's not just, you don't just go there to play football anymore. Like Steph must have been, how busy was Steph? Like the media attention and everything.
yeah,
It
yeah,
is something you don't necessarily, as an outsider, you wouldn't realize. So I think seeing that, but then also having to train two times a day sometimes, preparing for matches, travel again. That was crazy. The travel,
yeah.
different places for
Extremely
different
intense.
matches, and then obviously the big crowds. That was probably my first exposure to seeing, obviously, the girls playing in front of massive crowds every time,
Yeah, yeah,
and a lot of the games brought different challenges, which was good to see. But I think more like off the pitch training, the training days were class, and I think that kind of come from Mary, Carly, KB. They're all good people, so I think we had a really good relationship out there. And I think I'd like to think we had quite a bit of fun
yeah, yeah. We
within
did.
the training and things like that. So I think that was, although obviously being the fourth, that's your role, but for me it was the easiest job in the world because they're good people. So to be able to
Yeah.
support them and do that kind of thing just came so easy.
Yeah, no, and I think if you were to speak to any of the squad that were obviously there with you, the I suppose the words that they speak about you and the importance of how you impacted their journey during that period was crucial, really, really important. So I don't think your role in the World Cup could ever be underestimated. I think it's so important. Um, just in terms of going on from there, so we obviously get back from the World Cup. You play a part against Norway. You play in the Portugal game, and then you play in the Japan game in most recent She Believes. What was, again, going back to I suppose the exposure from making your debut, being involved in and around the media of the World Cup, then having more exposure to playing games. What what level of exposure have you I suppose been subjected to from media, again, from social media followings, and also where do you think now your journey's looking to head? What are your aspirations from an international level?
Yeah, I think naturally coming off the back of that World Cup as a squad, like I felt it, everyone felt it, whether you're a part, it was disappointing. Obviously, we won it, we went there to win, and we
Yeah.
didn't win. So I think coming off of the back of that, I think as a squad, we all want to just drive and obviously achieve as much as we can. And I think that players and staff, we all felt that. So obviously, them being given them opportunities to play, I was kind of desperate for that, to be honest. That was my aim coming off the back of it. I thought I really need to try and push this season, and I got off to a good start with the club. Played all the league games this season, so I think that had really helped me get some consistency to try and push the best I could at international level, really. And then getting the exposure, like you say, coming on against Norway, playing the Portugal game, and then obviously most recently the Japan game, which was probably the biggest international game I'd played in terms of exposure, the level of opponent, and all things like that, the crowds. And there is so much media attention around it that you've kind of got to take the good bits and help the media, do your interviews, do all that. But the main thing is you've got to focus on your own performance, which can sometimes get clouded if you kind of let all them things in. Like I say, we're busy day to day with media, with all them things, but at the end of the day, you've got to be on the grass and ready to train, which I found like you've kind of just got to take what the priorities are in that situation, and especially it's like a mini tournament in there. So I think just training and then training for a match. So for me, the Japan game was probably, like I say, the biggest international game I've played in, and it was class. I loved it, and obviously we won that game, so I can't complain. It was class.
Yeah. So it sounds like, just sort of summarising the international section, that how important your pathway experiences were in terms of helping you to get to the point you are today, where you play that game against Japan and then sets you up in terms of your future going forward as a senior England international goalkeeper. It sounds like the experiences along the way were really, really important, both on and off the pitch, in terms of preparing you for that. And I think there's some brilliant links between your early years, your club career, and obviously your international career. Just to finish off with, just with a couple of quick fire questions, just to put you on the spot. So, your favourite training session?
Anything where balls are just flying left, right, and centre, mannequins involved, anything reaction based, to be honest. I love anything like that. Something a bit chaotic.
Perfect. And superstitions?
Well, I didn't think this was a superstition, but a lot of people say it is. I just put my left sock, my left boot, and my left. No, not even my left. My right sock, my right boot, and my right glove on first. That's about it, really.
Okay, perfect. And favourite goalkeeper?
At the minute in the league, I think he's so underrated. I'd say Ben Foster. I just love how he plays. I think he's class. So I'd say him.
Brilliant. And your biggest footballing influence to finish off with?
Like I've spoke about before, obviously family have played such a massive part. So I definitely have to say mum and dad. More just their support on and off the pitch. My mum's clueless about football, but I absolutely love that. It helps. And then my dad just travelling up and down the country, around the world, everywhere. He's always there. So I think without them, probably wouldn't be able to do any of it.
No, that's great. That's great. So it leads me to say, really, I think a fascinating insight into your journey so far, and still a journey which has a long way to go. So that's really exciting. I think for the people watching, some really, really key experiences and messages in there that people could use in their own journeys and own careers, around really embracing challenge, around not shying away from it, but really accepting that to push yourself gives you a great opportunity to better yourself, and actually walking into environments where actually it's okay to feel uncomfortable, and it will help you become more comfortable for the future. So Ellie, thanks for spending the time with us. Thanks for being so open and honest. And look forward to catching up when we're back on the grass.
Nice one. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Ellie.